Welcome to the Western Producer One Beer Markets Update. I'm Phil Franz-Warkentin, joined today by Jerry Klassen of Resilient Capital. Welcome here, Jerry.
Thanks, Phil.
Statistics Canada released updated production estimates this morning with some pretty big crop estimates, especially on wheat and canola. So what did we see in that report today, Jerry, and what will it mean for the markets going forward?
Starting off with a canola, canola does very well in cooler conditions. And I think that farmers realized that we had a cooler July and the crops were larger than anticipated. The canola crop had a record yield. It came in at 21.8 million tons. This is up about 2.6 million tons from last year. So this is a record high production number. And I think more importantly, it looks like canola deliveries are down about 1 million tons from last year. So farmers are storing a lot of crop on farm, heading into the winter. And so I think the market needs to function to encourage demand through lower prices. Without China coming into the picture here, we have exports down about 50% from last year. And so without China in the picture, I think that, we're not going to see too much upside in the market. And when we do see a rally, it's likely a selling opportunity for farmers.
Okay. And wheat, I know it's nearly 40 million tons on all wheat, so I think that's well above any previous record. So where do things stand on the wheat? We don't have the same exports are doing much better on wheat compared to canola. So
Yeah, that's true, Phil. Spring wheat production was 29.3 million tons. This is up about 3 million tons from last year, and it was sharply higher than trade estimates. So I think this number is viewed as bearish for the overall wheat complex in general. I think traders are looking at this record Canadian spring wheat yield of 58.8 bushel an acre, and they're thinking if the Canadian crop is this large, the U.S. hard red spring wheat crop could be, 500,000 tons to 1 million tons larger than what the USDA was forecasting as well. So, because conditions in Western Canada and North Dakota were very similar. So, I think in conclusion, it looks like Canada has a large volume of mid-protein wheat. This wheat competes with the U.S. hard red winter and the Russian hard, wheat as well on the world market. So there's a lot of competition out there, for the latter half of the crop year here on, for all wheats. And again, this number is viewed as fairly bearish for the wheat complex.
okay. And like of the wheat, I know Durum is larger as well. How does that stack up on the Durum
I
specifically?
think the durum is a bit unique, separates itself from the wheat, just because I think traders were anticipating a crop of this size. The durum number came in at 7.1 million tons. It was a yield of 40.9 bushel an acre. And I think that traders were anticipating this type of crop size. So the market has likely factored in the larger production. So I don't think, durum prices are at 52-week lows in Western Canada. And so, the market is encouraging demand at these levels. And so looking forward, we're probably not going to see a lot of upside, but at the same time, I think the downside is limited as well for the durum.
And I know for Durham was in line with trade expectations, but I think oats and barley were both above what anyone I'd spoken with at least were expecting. Are those large barley and oats crops weighing on those markets as well?
For the barley number was huge. I mean, it came in at 9.7 million tons. This is up 1.6 million tons from last year. For the barley market, almost similar to the durum, the barley market has adjusted to larger production. Maybe not this significantly as we saw with StatsCan, but we're seeing barley competitive on the world market. We've seen some active exports to Saudi Arabia. We see Japan taking more than last year as well. China's been a good buyer of Canadian barley here, so far this year. And so with the barley market, with Canadian barley prices competitive on the world market, I don't see a lot of downside here for barley. We're also, moving in that seasonal high demand period in the domestic market as more cattle move on to feed. And so the barley market will probably, kind of hold value here moving forward through the winter. The oats is a little different story. I think the oat production was larger than anticipated. I think, a lot of the end users in North America are covered, here. And, oats, doesn't have as large of an exports offshore compared to barley. And I think that's, a negative factor for the oats. So the domestic market really needs to absorb this larger production. And there's only so many homes for it. So the oat market does have some downside.
Okay. And finally, just touching on the pulses, big crops there as well on lentils and peas, and also trade issues on that front. So where do things stand on peas and lentils?
Well, pea production came in at 3.9 million tons. This is up almost a million tons from last year. Like you said, China has a tariff on peas. India has a tariff on Canadian peas as well. So farmers can't expect much upside in the pea market. Very simply for the pea market, we have a huge increase in supply and lower export demand. And so, it's going to take a while to chew through these larger supplies. On the lentils, lentils came in at 3.4 million tons. This is also up about a million tons from last year. Uh, Canada has a large crop of lentils. Australian output is expected to be up about 50% from last year. This comes on the heels of a larger Russian crop. So there's a lot of competition in the export market for lentils. And, growing conditions right now in India are very satisfactory. And so, the demand is also limited. There's only so many homes for the Canadian lentils. And so I think right now we got a pretty stagnant market looking at the lentils.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Jerry. I think that covers a lot of grounds. We've got big crops of just about everything that we'll be looking for a home in the next over the next year. So that it looks like that will be weighing on prices for just about everything. Um, but yes, thanks again, Jerry Klassen, for joining us. This is the Western Producer Markets Desk, one beer market update.